Gentlemen, welcome to the Front Row Dads podcast. I'm joined today by the one and only Mike Michalowicz, who, to prep myself for this conversation today, I was watching a couple of his videos. Early morning, I found myself laughing out loud on the couch, damn near waking my wife up in the other room, and just thinking to myself how much I love being around Mike. Now, he's got a lot of business accomplishments, and I could run through the whole roster of the books he's written and the lives he's changed, which we'll get to some of that. But most importantly, he's a human that people enjoy being around. And that, to me, is the most impressive part of his bio. Mike, welcome to the show, man. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be back. Thanks for such a kind intro. That touches me. Thank you, brother.
Well, it's, to me, the accomplishments, the business stuff, they're legendary. Like, you're a creative, the marketing ideas you have. And I've been at a couple of your events, like the Author Up Live.
Oh yeah.
And learning about how you write and then launch these books. But you were able to package it and then teach other people to do it. The reason why I've always been so impressed by your work also is that the premise of it is, how do you create a business that is, for example, touching to one of your books, is profitable? How do you pay yourself first, right? How do you profit first? And the principles that we're teaching, the principles of systems and processes and profits, the health of an organization, I find to be one of the most important for our group, since we're serving high-performing entrepreneurial men, business owners. My story was that I would grind and work so hard to build the business and build my life. And because I didn't have the right tools and the processes and the systems, and I wasn't paying myself first, and I felt all this stress of the business, I carried it right into my family life. And they felt the brunt of that. I didn't have anything left for them. My kids would trigger me in an instant, but mostly because I was already walking the edge of sanity in my life. And I was just a loose cannon, because the problem was I didn't have a grip on my work. And that's why I'm really excited to dig into this conversation with you. So we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah,
we got a lot to talk about. Let's start with right now, though, and let's reverse engineer a little bit. So can you give us a little framing, a little context of like what's happening in your life right now in your professional and your personal world? Take us high level.
Yeah. So I am working the least hours of my life ever at this point, and being the most productive, which I never thought there was a correlation between that. But there was a study I read that came out of, I think it was England. Actually, I know it was England, that found the average knowledge worker is productive for 3.2 hours per day, regardless of the hours worked. I'm like, oh, I'm a knowledge worker, right? I codify ideas. I'm like, I wonder what my productivity is. And maybe I'm an exception and it's 4.2 hours. But it surely ain't this 10, 12-hour days. So over the last 5 years, I've been taking actions to deliberately slow my active time, just the grind time, and amplify the productive time, which is really thinking, really putting deep thought into something and making the right move. Ultimately, I'm seeing my life right now like a chessboard. Like, oh, I can move the pieces real fast, but I'm losing the pieces. If I really think of all the moves and take the time to do that and then make the one right move, I'm putting myself in a much better position. So that's been great. This year I hiked the Appalachian Trail, not the entire trail, a section of it with my youngest son. My wife and I went to Napa for a week and toured around. I've never been to Napa before and toured around. I've been taking 3-day weekends, not consistently, but more than I ever have in my life. And it's been really good to reconnect with have deeper connections with my family, while also seeing my business achieve the objective that I've set for it.
So you hiked the Appalachian Trail, you went to Napa, you've been working the least amount of hours. What do you think has been the most fun that you've been having of all these things that you're doing? What's creating the most laughter, the most joy in your world right now?
So this is the craziest thing. So tailgating, I'm so into it. So I have a little pickup truck, and I've been looking into ways to like kind of optimize the tailgating. So another thing I've been doing, I didn't mention, is my wife.
Is this the next book, by the way?
It's called Tailgating 101. My wife and I are going to see all these different concerts. Like, so we just saw Jewel, the Eagles, Phil Collins, Blues Traveler, Train. We just signed up to see Billy Idol. Sting. And when Tom Petty died, I was like, I can't believe I never saw Tom Petty perform. Like that is, it's such a deep, I don't know why it's so emotional, like it's such a deep regret. So I'm like, I'm never going to miss a band I grew up to. So my wife and I are seeing these bands. But what ends up being, the concerts are amazing. What's fun is the tailgate. So now I started doing this with my family. So we're going to football games and stuff like this. And we just sit out and party off the back of a truck for 3 or 4 hours. And it's so much fun. There's no phones. We're playing mega Jenga. We're throwing Frisbees. All my kids are of drinking age. So we throw back a bourbon or two. It is awesome. So that's actually the most fun I'm having right now. And
you're doing these concerts with your kids?
Not the concerts, the football games and the sporting events.
Oh, okay.
The concerts are usually just me and my wife. The kids are like,
and not as much tailgating.
Who's that?
Right. Not as much tailgating, I'm guessing, at the concerts as there are at the games.
Yeah.
So of the concerts, one of those you mentioned, I just recently saw. Who's been your favorite so far this year?
My favorite this year? It may have been the Eagles, and Joe Walsh blew me away. Don Henley was amazing. I'm like, nothing can. It
was the Eagles for me.
Yeah. Was Joe Walsh insanely good?
Yeah. So the thing to me was that I had seen several amazing artists this year. One of which was Bon Jovi.
Oh, I want to see him so badly.
From a legendary perspective, and like I grew up listening to his music, right? I even grew up in the Northeast, but the concert if I was going apples to apples, this isn't a poke at Bon Jovi. This is a compliment to the Eagles. The Eagles were so tight with their music. It was just witnessing incredibly talented musicians who were incredibly in sync with each other, who had the right amount of talking into the mic and sharing stories and giving the music, and then the variations and the music itself is amazing, but the individuals as artists are remarkable. It was one of the most amazing shows I've ever seen. I had people say that for years, and I was like, oh, they're just Eagles fans. Like they could literally sound or perform like anything, but they're Eagles fans, so they're going to be biased. But I like Eagles music, but they're really crazy good.
And you know, Glenn Fry's son playing too, talking about front row dads, right? The son playing, and he was unbelievable. But I would love to see you in your Bon Jovi Bad Medicine t-shirt with your acid wash jeans all ripped up, your spiked hair.
I think one of my favorite things about going to all these shows also is like looking at the crowd that attends. Like just look around and like look at the Bon Jovi crowd, then look at the Dave Matthews crowd, then look at the Eagles crowd, and it's like you just start to really understand the demographic that loves this kind of music.
It's so true.
It's so
I want to
cool.
see Motley Crue. They're touring around right now, and I missed them just because I had conflict. Gosh.
Don't they have a great book out? Somebody was telling me they have a fun book about their touring. Yeah. Did you ever read?
No, I gotta read that. It's probably the same. I saw the movie and it's like, oh my God, where Ozzy Osbourne was snorting ants.
Jesus, I can't take it.
With ants.
Well, where do I go from there, man? All right. Speaking of ants and nature, talk to me about the Appalachian Trail. You did this with your son. How old is your son?
So my son's 21.
Yeah.
And what I do with each one of my children now, this is a realization that came out when I was writing Clockwork and working on this, is the prior version of me was never available for my kids because work was always the priority.
Right.
I didn't go to the soccer games unless it was on a weekend. I missed the ceremonies and the recognition. And it was really 5-6 years ago where I made this shift, like, holy cow, what am I doing? And I remember it was midday, like on a Tuesday, I went to my son's track event. He was running around the field, and as he's running, I see him looking back and doing a double take. He couldn't believe I was there. And both of us got emotional over it. And it's like, I'm never missing this. What I committed to was I have 3 children, with each of my children each year to do a father-child, I have 1 daughter, 2 father-child event for a week or 2. Like we'll do a trip. So my daughter and I, we did the national parks last year, Yellowstone, thank God, because before these terrible things are happening, like storms and stuff and so forth. My son, I said, what do you want to do? He's like, I don't know, whatever. And I'm like, Appalachian Trail, it's on my bucket list. He's like, I'm in. So we hiked from New York State down to New Jersey about a month ago now for 7 days. So it was a 1-week trip. And we ran into a rattlesnake. I actually didn't even know rattlesnakes existed in New York State and New Jersey. They do. bear. We had a bear run in, which was safe. And we thank God we had a horn that scared the bear away. And just amazing things. It was so interesting because you're hiking or together for, well, all the time, but when you're not sleeping, you wake a 12-hour time. You wake up at 6 a.m., you're going until 6 p.m. and you're just going. And there's no phone time. You're walking, you're hiking, and you're talking, and you're getting exhausted, and your morale goes up and down. I'll never forget this one day we're hiking, and the blisters on our feet are massive, and we're talking about how our morale's compromised, and we're like, we want to give up. And some guy, we were what was called SOPs, southbound, a NOBO. Most people are going NOBO, northbound, walks by us and says, hot dog stand 10 miles away. Now, for us to cover 10 miles, that's a 5-hour hike. We're moving about 30, a mile every half hour. So we're like, we got 5 hours. We got to start hustling. We got blisters on our feet. It's painful to walk, but just the thought of having real food as opposed to dried food again.
Oh yeah.
We double timed and we made it there a half hour before this place closed. And we wolfed down, I think between the two of us, like 8 hot dogs. It was amazing. So very memorable.
Wow. What's your son's name?
Jake.
Jake that you hiked with. So if we asked Jake what that experience was like for him, what might you guess he would say? Or maybe he's already told you.
Yeah, I think it's unforgettable. Meaning I think the day I leave this planet and he'll say, I remember that hike with my dad.
Yeah.
I think the bonding, I think we feel more bonded because we have stories. What we started doing, it's beautiful views and stuff, but it's just repetition. So you start making up stories. So anytime a person would walk by and we engage them, we'd give them a nickname without them knowing. So the first guy, we called him No Water Nick, because this guy comes walking by and we need water. You can't carry it all with you. It's too heavy. So you need to find streams and stuff, purify the water. Like it's real outdoor stuff.
Yeah, you're really, yeah.
So this guy, he goes, you're in New York State. There's no water in New York. This state sucks. He's like talking about the streams and how bad New York sucks for not having streams. So we're like, this is No Water Nick. And the stories are like that we'll never forget.
That's cool, man. Did you learn anything about your son that you found was particularly compelling or interesting that you think would have never come up having not been there, without compromising Jake, of course, or the opposite? Was there something you shared with him that you're like, man, I never would have guessed in a million years I would have told him that story, or I would have shared that, or I would have had this realization?
He grew up, he had what was called selective mutism as a child. This is where it's an extreme version of shyness, and it's a developmental issue. You can work through it, and he's built through it. But now to see he's not an extrovert, meaning he doesn't go up to random people and like, hey, how are you? But he leans toward the extroversion now. So we ran into these random people, and people smell wretched. Like we all reek, no showering the whole trip, right? So there's people coming up to us, and Jake's just engaging conversation. This one guy was just trying to figure out the geography, the inclines and declines. And I saw just Jake with this guy mapping it out and telling him what to do. It was just, to me, it was very touching that he was being of service to someone else in such an extroverted way, where I knew this kid flashback 15 years ago, he wouldn't say a word. He was like a mute effectively. That was cool. Also his care for nature. I remember like there was an injured, I don't even know if it was injured. It was just this little salamander type thing. And it was in a hiking path and people could step on it. So he captured it. All right, little fellow, we got you. Here's this 21-year-old kid who's, likes to party at college and all that stuff. And just the way he was respecting and treating nature was really powerful. I admired that in him.
That's cool, man. Thanks for sharing. You alluded to this, and I want to get to it now, which is how you're able to make these things happen in your life. The time that you've been able to create, time, freedom, time, wealth. You didn't have that earlier on. And let's talk a little bit about that. Talk to us about the processes that you wrote about in the book. I'd love to tease the book because I think people should get it and read it. But I more so want to just talk about the practical applications of it, and how that came to be. So if we can back into this, if we can back into the book by talking about your development of the process, and then we can reveal the process in that way, that would be awesome.
Totally. I'm not trying to be pitchy. I'm just excited. The galley literally came in today. So it's Clockwork revised and expanded. So it's got this little ribbon on it. It literally came in today. So I was all giddy. The
real quick, what in the lineup of books that you put out, what number was Clockwork?
It was probably the original one was the 5th book. I'm now 8 books in, so this is a full rewrite. So it was interesting. I got a call from my publisher. So I get contracted to do the revised and expanded edition, and he says they say, hey, we can give you 2 months to do it and so forth. All right, back. I'm like, 2 months? A manuscript takes about a year. And they're like, yeah, but it's an R&E. It's a revised and expanded. I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, most people just add and change a few words. I rewrote the entire book. It's a whole new book. Wow. And they're like, holy shit, no one does this. They came back with the data, 60% brand new content, like word for word, 66% new, 40% restructured. So it's 100% reworked to be more efficient, more palatable. How it came about was I had this realization when I was missing all this stuff. I had bastardized the term entrepreneur, and it's popularized by some people. They call it hustle and grind. If you're an entrepreneur, it's about hustle and grind. And I bought into that bullshit, hook, line, and sinker. I was like, oh, a successful entrepreneur works their ass off. And then I had a flip the script moment. I'm like, what if the job of an entrepreneur is not to do the job, but to be a creator of jobs? Like, they started doing research. Do you know only 14% of the global population will ever own a business ever of any sort? And by the way, of the 14% that ever start a business or own a business, 80% will fail within 5 years. So it's about 3 to 4% of the population who will be successful long-term entrepreneurs. 97% of the population is looking for good jobs. And I'm like, if I'm doing the work, I'm stealing jobs from other people. My job in this economy of ours is to be a creator of jobs for people who want good jobs. Make a great place to work where people love doing it. Most people just want to work a great job. So with that shift, I stopped calling myself an entrepreneur. This is a little hack, by the way. I find that there's nothing that moves us more than being compliant with our identity.
Yes.
So the word entrepreneur means hustle and grind. I'm like, okay, that's who I am. I must hustle and grind. I ditched entrepreneur, even though I love the word, and use the word shareholder with a small business. So if we're out at a cocktail party or something like that, and someone's like, hey, so that your buddy of yours in Austin there has a big party. So, hey, what do you do? He's working with ayahuasca. I would say I'm a shareholder of a small business. And it's weird when I first started saying it, but the reason I use that term is I'm also a shareholder in Ford, for example. I don't work at Ford. I don't go down to the Ford factory. When they send a profit distribution, I'm like, oh, I don't have to run down to the factory to earn this. And I don't return it to them either and say, this is a profit replow or plowback. What I simply do is I'm a shareholder. That means I've taken risk by investing in this company. I share in the profit and I give it strategic direction. You vote for the board of directors. Actually, another vote thing just came through. I got to fill out my ballot. In my small business, I'm 100% shareholder. I own all the equity. So what my job is I've taken the risk to start and build a business. All the financial consequences of failure are mine. Therefore, I share in the success. Thank you for contributing to the economy. I share in the profit. I do share some with my employees. And I give it strategic direction. That's my biggest job. The last little caveat, as a small business owner, we have the right to reinsert ourselves in the business and give ourselves a job if it gives us joy. And it doesn't distract from the business doing what it's doing on its own. I think a business needs to run on its own. But once it gets that level, I love being a spokesperson. So I love like bullshitting with you and doing my goofy jokes and just talking about stuff. And I love writing books. So I have reinserted myself in the business to do that. But first I got the business to a structure where if I wasn't participating in any way, this business would continue on without me.
What is, so let's use me as an example, right? If you're evaluating my world and you're trying to help me with the Clockwork processes. So Front Row Dads has, about 300 members. We have a team, we have one full-time employee, and we have several contractors that we have on the team. And I currently am not scheduling anything on Mondays and Fridays. Nice. I'm only scheduling activities Tuesday through Thursday between 10 and 4. Those are the only time I'll do podcasts and calls and whatever it might be. And I feel like I have a good amount of time freedom. I feel like I'm getting better at being a CEO, right? That I'm intentionally choosing the jobs that I have in the organization, and I'm intentionally trying not to be the bottleneck. So if you take me as the example, how might I look at Clockwork? Is it a book for me?
Totally.
How would I approach it? What would be in it for me?
Totally. You have a leg up over, I think, most entrepreneurs in that you've established really good habits of blocking personal time first and letting the business fill in. So that's perfect. There's two more things I would do. One is I'd schedule a 4-week vacation, and this is 4 consecutive weeks away from the business. And I would do it within the next 18 months max. And the reason is this. I surveyed and studied for this book hundreds of businesses, but collectively over time, thousands of businesses, and identified that for almost every small business in the world, it moves in monthly cycles. We get new prospects or new members in your case. Someone may leave, you have to hire or fire, customer complaints, customer service needs, billing, invoicing, close out the month. All that stuff happens every 4 weeks. So it's this 4-week cycle. Therefore, if we can extract the owner from the business for 4 consecutive weeks and the business continues, that means the business doesn't need the owner into perpetuity. It's the ultimate acid test. What happens is when people schedule for vacation, first of all, there's this visceral fear, like, are you effing kidding me? I can't leave for 2 weeks. I can't leave for 2 days. Or are you insane? If you have that emotion, schedule for vacation, but it is calling you to take action to systematize. There's stuff missing. Secondly, when you leave and you return, things aren't going to be perfect, but that is the call to fix those things for the next 4-week vacation. I've been doing this. I wrote the original book 5 years ago, and that's when I started. The great thing about writing a book is it's the ultimate accountability mechanism. Like if I write profit first and then don't do it, like it's such bullshit. I have to live by it. When I wrote Clockwork, I had to start taking these 4-week vacations. Last year, I took 9 weeks of vacation, 4 consecutive, and I did 5 other sporadics. So we need to do that. The other thing though, people say is, but my employees or my employee, that employees will feel like, oh my God, John's going down to the beach. He's drinking his Mai Tais. And all I'm doing is working my ass off to support his crazy, amazing lifestyle. Screw him. That's what I was afraid of. But what I found is actually employees become empowered. It's like, oh, Jon trusts me to run this organization. I am stepping up to something bigger. And we need to position it that way because that is truthful, but share that. And the last thing, which I didn't expect about the 4-week vacation, is ego. When I took my very first one, I went to Australia. It was about 3 days into this, and there wasn't a single email that came to me. I was like, what the hell's going on? Did the place burn to the ground? Is it over? And I started panicking and I started to reinsert myself in the business. I was emailing the team, hey, where's the reports and stuff? They're like, I thought you were on vacation. Here you go. I caused more problems than anything. When I came back, I said to my team, nothing burned down. Everything was fine. I said, what was the biggest problems we had? They said, Mike, it's hard to say, but it was you. Leave us alone. Like, we got this. You said you trusted us, but then you demonstrated that you didn't. Now I'm over that. And I changed my identity from being a superhero for my business to a supervisionary. I still need to fulfill my fat ego, but superhero is someone that, fights the biggest criminal, but destroys the city in the process. We take on the problems our business has, but we destroyed everything behind the scenes. Our team has to clean up. So that's step one, is schedule a 4-week vacation within 18 months and see how your heart feels and start working toward that. The second thing is,
hold on real quick, Mike. I'm gonna make a comment on this too, because I want to point the guys to an interview that I think actually, as we record this, is dropping this week with Grant Baldwin. And Grant runs the Speaker Lab. He's a VIP front row dad member. He comes to our retreats. I've known Grant for a while. We met in the speaking business. But one of the things I've watched Grant do, and I want you guys to go listen to Grant's episode, because he talks about how he just did the 4-week vacation. And I don't know if he got the idea from you, but he just did this. And he literally unpacks how he did it and what it looked like and how it empowered his team. And so if anybody wants a case study, they should listen to his example. But, he's now grown, almost an 8-figure business from a decade ago when he and I were in we were speakers together. We were out giving speeches, and that's how we met. And then he built the speaking business, teaching other people how to do it. But he has a team of, I think, 30 or 35 employees now. They're going to do, their business is growing like crazy. And he took 4 weeks off. So I just wanted to mention that because he's a great example of somebody that did this work.
I love that.
And he loved it. And his business grew when he left. So a testament to the process. And I have not done this, but I never quite saw it the way you just presented it about the 30-day cycle. I think that's genius.
Yeah.
And I am committed to doing this. So it's in my notes. I'm going to make it happen. And I can't wait to tell you about it.
The final tip is this, that the 4-week vacation is not about you getting a vacation. It's about the business getting a vacation from you. That's the twist.
That's great.
The twist. And I conclude Clockwork, the new version, revised and expanded, with a story from Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Hamilton.
Hamilton. I don't know if you know how Hamilton came about.
I don't.
From a 4-week vacation. So
is that right?
Yep. He made another Broadway show called In the Heights. And he was working multiple jobs. He made this Broadway show. He was working hustle and grind ridiculously. His wife, out of frustration and exhaustion, said, "We are going on vacation. You have to stop this," because it's now that I'm adding a little flurry to this. I'm not sure exactly why, but it was not healthy for the relationship. It's my perception. So they went on vacation. Well, Lin-Manuel, what does he do? He brings a book with him, which is Alexander Hamilton's biography. So, I would sit and be drinking Coronas on the beach. He's reading this 818-page book. And in there, he has the epiphany of a lifetime. He's like, oh my gosh, I got the next show. It's Hamilton. He now is probably one of the best proponents for vacation. He says, I would have never had that idea if I wasn't away from my business. Because when you're in it, it's the day-to-day moments. It's a constant reaction, hustle and grind. Vacation also gives your mind to elevate to a level of thought. It's in that quiet time when the most processing happens and we start connecting dots together. Now he says he suggests everyone takes a vacation if you care about your business and growing it. So I thought that was an interesting spin.
Wow. I got to tell you this, Mike, before you go to number 2, I got to give you props here. And I really you have such an incredible talent, such an incredible way to take a seemingly obvious idea and find these little nuances and tweaks and tunes and tuning them up so that, like, the idea of don't take a vacation from the business, or don't take a vacation, give the business a vacation from you, right? Like that's worth the entire conversation today. And that's what's genius about you, is that you have this ability to say in one sentence and package this idea that flips people's, the concept of how they need to operate in life, flip it on its head and see it from a new angle. Thank you. All right, you for saying now I'm ready for number 2.
Thank you for saying that. This touches my soul, because I believe that's my promise, is to really simplify entrepreneurship by reframing. So here's the other thing you can do. Now, this is a little more time consuming to do, but it is really eye-opening, and it's time tracking. We've heard of this before. What I do once a year is I track at least 1 week of time, sometimes 2 weeks. And there's free tools out there. I can't remember the one I used recently. And it sounds laborious. And it really isn't. Just every half hour, I have a little ping that goes off and says, what am I doing now? Or every 15 minutes. And so for the 2 weeks, if it's a little annoying ping and you type it in, but then it's very revealing. It's like, holy shiitake. I thought I was on social media for about 30 minutes a day. Oh my God, it's like actually 3 hours a day. I couldn't effing believe it. My biggest thing was email engagement. This was the big epiphany this year. I said, you know what? I respond to all my readers. It takes me a half hour a day to go through it. That was taking me 2 hours a day on average to respond to readers. I get that many. So I clockworked it. I write the emails originally, but now there's certain common questions that occur. I have an assistant that handles it all. My response time has gone down to, we're averaging about 15 minutes a day, where I really need to customize something to respond to someone, from 2 hours. When you do this, hiring people, the belief was, oh, I need to hire someone and bring a new person on. That's not right. Imagine Google saying, tomorrow we're going to hire 100,000 people. Currently they have 100,000, and we're going to bring on 100,000 more. That's 100% growth. if you are a 1 or 2 person operation, you bring on just one full-time person, that's 100% growth. It's the same kind of jolt. Google would never bring on that many people at once because it overwhelms. The mistake micro enterprises make when we have 1 employee ourselves, or maybe 2, we bring on another full-time person. It's such a jolt to the system. We're like, this is too much. It's overwhelming. I'm gonna go back to the way it was. Using this time tracking, you can identify where the things that are consuming a lot of time are important, but not necessary that you do it. And can we just fractionalize that one piece and hire someone just for that role? And maybe it's a part-timer that works a few hours a week or a day. That's what we have here. Many of our team is part-timers. Maybe it's a contractual worker, but start taking out pieces of yourself, not all in one tranche. And that is the big shift to these 4-week vacations. And then maybe ultimately, I wrote a story about one guy who took a 2-year vacation from his business, and the business went from 25 million to 50 million in his absence because he did this process, removing those fractions of himself.
Are you good? Do you personally take on the responsibility of creating processes, the SOPs, the systems, documenting these literally in whatever, Google Doc or Sheets or whatever system you might use? Or do you have an operations person that does all that for you?
I do not. I'm doing the yes. Yeah. I know all the things you're talking about. I do not, nor does anyone here do traditional SOPs. In fact, I challenge that SOPs are a prudent approach, because an SOP, first of all, it's very time consuming to create. Secondly, it's very time consuming to consume. It's overwhelming. And thirdly, the relevance is very short. I wrote my first SOP about 10 years ago for packaging and shipping books, because I was doing it myself. I hired an employee to do this. It took me like 2 days to picture. It was beautiful. The pictures, everything. I'm like, follow this process, Jackie, verbatim. She came back in 10 minutes later. She goes, oh, the UPS site we shipped through, they just redid their entire website. This thing doesn't work. And I'm like, holy crap. Here's a better way. I call them captures. Any activity you're doing that you want to transfer, record it during the process. You can use an online recorder like a Loom type thing. You can use your video phone. There's only 3 ways that we transfer knowledge or information. 1 is through computer nowadays. 2 is verbal. And 3rd is through physical. We move a box from here to here. So these all can be filmed or voice recorded or screen captured. Here's the key. When you're doing the activity, record it. Do a voiceover as you're doing it. So I do an invoice, it takes me 10 minutes. If I do it with a voiceover, it takes me 15 minutes by explaining each step. Give it to the person that's now supposed to do it and say, here's our best practice. This is now, and do this. And then this is the key. Make sure they create a new video teaching the process as they understand it within the next week. The lesson is the greatest student is always the teacher. If it can be taught, it has to be known. And if I just give a video of a training to someone, they may try to copy it, but they don't really inherently know it. When they can teach it, they've mastered the skill, and now it's theirs. Every employee, so we're tiny, we have 10 employees, and again, mostly part-time at our author office here. And everyone records their processes. So we have this massive storage of knowledge. So if Amy, for example, is leaving tomorrow for Europe as one of our employees, all of her knowledge is not going out the door. We have all the systems captured over the months and years of her working here, so we can refer to it and use it when she's away for the next month. And oh, by the way, there's a little bonus tip. Every employee at our company takes a 4-week vacation. This is something we instituted 2 years ago, and this has been a game changer for us. Yes, it's a great recruitment tool. It's a paid 4-week vacation. It has to be 4 consecutive weeks. It's a great recruiting tool. We actually got some amazing employees as a result, but that was not the intention. The real value is not to the employee, it's to the company. Amy, as an example, has to have redundancy. So for Amy to leave, she has to make sure that Jenna and Jeremy, these are 2 other colleagues that she works with, can back her. And Jeremy, when he leaves for his 4-week vacation, he makes sure that Izzy and Kelsey is backing and so forth. So we have this web-like structure of redundancy. It's inevitable that someone or multiple people are going to leave. Maybe it's me. We don't know. Maybe it's an accident that happens, or someone gets sick, or they're just retire or move on to something else. But the knowledge now is in the business and it's actively being executed on. Someone's always a backup at all times.
Whoa. I feel like it's so interesting. I just had this this pull, this oppositional directional pull. One is like, I have so much value from you already, Mike. I'm like, let's just call this interview.
Let's call it a day.
Let's call it a day, man. It's like, how quickly can I go implement these tools into my business? I've never wanted to end the conversation in such a complimentary way so that I could go do the things you've told me about. And also I know that there's so much more. Let me give you just kind of an open-ended question, which is, you wrote the book. Yeah. You're excited about the book. When is it officially released?
October 30th, which is kind of interesting. Just a quick little caveat. It wasn't come out October 23rd. I got a call from my publisher yesterday. This is Penguin Random House. They said, we can't print the book on time. There's such supply chain issues throughout the industry. Yeah. They said, we just can't get it done. They have the most sway for printing in the world. Yeah. And they said all of our books are getting bumped. So just a heads up to all of those.
Yeah. I've heard that from a couple of authors that literally they have a book out right now, not even a new book, but they can't sell it, can't print it because of supply issues, which is fascinating. Man, we could go into a whole prepper conversation if we want, Mike.
I know.
About the state of the world, but let's stay on Clockwork for a minute. And so what else do we want men to know about, or women, whoever happens to be listening to the show, but what do we want these guys to know about what's in the book? What else do we want to give them that we haven't talked about?
So there was this concept of the 3 T's. I've expanded this book to the 4th T. So I believe in building efficiency for ourselves. Remember what at the heart of this is I've yet to meet an entrepreneur that has gone into their business because they don't care about money and they don't care about time. In fact, most people start a business because they want personal freedom and financial freedom. Personal freedom is being available to do what you want when you want. And financial freedom is not ever having to worry about bills. And sadly, most businesses don't achieve either of that. It becomes the reverse. We're beholden to the business because it's not making any money. And now we become a slave to it and we don't have time for anything else. We have to achieve that personal freedom. It demonstrates, by the way, to our team, our workforce, that this is the normal. So many owners set the standard, like hustle and grind, work 12-hour days. I expect this of everybody. And we're destroying not just our own life, but other people's lives. So show through your actions that less time can be more productive. And you can use the 4 T's. So here's the 4 T's. The first thing is, if you have work, can you first trash it? Is there things you do that just aren't necessary? Maybe historically you've done that. I used to write a newsletter for a community of my readers, and I would send a newsletter once a month. And one month I actually just forgot to do it. And no one said boo. I didn't get an email saying, hey, where's the monthly newsletter? Right. No one. I got a few hundred people. So the next month I didn't do it on purpose and no one said anything. The third month I did it again. I sent one out, and the month after I didn't do it. And no one said boo in any case. I'm like, why am I doing this stupid freaking newsletter? No one gives a shit. There's things you can trash and that you just do because you've done. Trash those things. The next thing is you can transfer. You can give the work to someone else. I thought creating invoices sucks, that the entire world knows creating invoices sucks. And that's not true. Amy here loves to do that type of work. For her, she says it's a big disconnect. She has a lot of stuff going on in her life. And she's like, this is just something for me to get into a grind and kind of disassociate with other elements of life. It's actually joyful. I'm like, really? Are you sick? She goes, no, are you sick? I'm like, no, you're sick. You can transfer work to people who will treasure, which is the next T. Treasure. There's certain things that we treasure and we should cling to those. I love being a spokesperson for the brand. I love being a cheerleader for our little business here. I love writing books. That's the things I treasure. I should stick with those. Those actually bring energy. Every time I'm doing those things, it actually elevates my joy factor. And the last thing is trim. There's certain things that are going to be stuck with you and you have to do those because no one else is available or can do them. But the thing is, can you do it more efficiently? Can you do it in half the time or less time? Can you find a tool or resource to do it more effectively? We have a big event we do every year. We call ProfitCon. I actually got you to speak there one year if I can snook you into it. Snooker you into it. And
however you want to get me there, Mike.
Yeah, hooker, snooker with hookers. I want to get you there with hookers, John.
That's right.
Lots of male hookers. So what I would do is I would do this in a spreadsheet. I was tracking everything. I'm like, this is taking so much time. And we just found this tool called Eventbrite, and it handles 90% of it. So I'm still responsible for this important task of organizing, but I cut the time down to maybe 1/10 of what I used to invest. So sometimes it's just about trimming through technology or other ways.
Wow. Man, Mike, this has been so fun. I really appreciate the conversation. When can people pre-order the book?
You can it's on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. Actually, every major bookstore. So you can pre-order it today.
Yeah.
It's there and it'll ship on apparently August 30th.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And that was August, not October, right?
Yeah, did I say October before? I meant to say August.
Earlier October, yeah, but now
I meant to say August. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I thought so. Great. Well, I'm really excited about it. You're an incredible writer, perhaps an even better storyteller and communicator about your books, which I think is a rare combination. I really appreciate you. I love how our conversation unfolded today too, talking about some of the personal stuff, the adventures with your family. To me, this is such an enjoyable conversation because we talk about the benefit of the freedom with your adventures, and then actually we're getting into how to create that in your life.
And I gotta say, I love that I learned to get you to speak somewhere. It's got to send you to the Thunder Down Under crew.
That's right. That's right. Guys, I want to tell everybody that's out there that, we have 6 pillars in Front Row Dads. Members will know this. And if you've found your way to the show and you're new, there's 6 things that we focus on in Front Row Dads. The obvious ones would probably be things like parenting and marriage. But we also focus, because of our group and the demographic that we're serving, we focus on business evolution. And really what that means to us is, how do we create a business that evolves, that serves the world, but that we get to own the business and it doesn't own us. And so obviously, for the reasons that you've so perfectly articulated it through your processes of why we want to do this, and even things that you spoke about, like why we want to give the business a vacation from us, but also the team. It's, that you've really got me thinking about, and the team having this 4-week break, or giving the vacation, a business a vacation from them, as well. And what that does to strengthen the system. It reminds me a little bit also of why I vacation, or why I travel. A lot of times is so that I appreciate being back home. And sometimes if we don't step away, we don't appreciate. If people don't step away from the business, we might not appreciate them. If they don't step away from the business, they might not appreciate them. The business appreciating the people, our members missing me or missing Rachel, I think is a healthy thing as well. But in the end of the day, what we're talking about are creating healthy systems that are sustainable, that are good for the world, that are good for families. And thank you, Mike, for your work. I appreciate you very much.
Jon, thank you. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah. My last question to you would be this. Now that you have older kids, if we can just fast forward into the future, let's cast out as far as you want, but let's just say that it's 20 or 30 years from now, right, into the future. And you're looking back on the past 2 or 3 decades of your life as a dad with older kids. What does success look like for you as a father in this season, of your journey and their journey as your children?
I think what comes to mind, if my kids choose to have children, I have one son who's turning 30 this year. So my kids are getting up there. I started early. I'm 50. But if my kids choose to have their own children and then say, you got to go to your grandparents, you got to spend time with your grandfather, me, because he's so much fun and he's so joyous and he's so knowledgeable, or whatever the reasoning is. But if they want their children to be with me for the learning and joy that their children will experience, that I think is the ultimate compliment that I've earned. I'm hoping I've earned that and deliver on that.
Well said, Mike. Thanks again for being here. Guys, go get the book, pre-order it, and check out some of Mike's other books. His work is incredible. Profit First was very powerful for me, along with many of the other works that you've put out. Where would you send them if they wanted to just learn more about Mike and connect with you or stay in the community?
I just bought the domain Second Row Granddads. So we're right behind the First Row Dads. We're sitting there going,
that's right.
So you can go there, I guess. But if you want to learn about the book, the site to go to is clockwork.life, because I think it is a lifestyle, clockwork.life for the book. And then for me and all the work I do collectively, while you could go to Mike Michalowicz, no one can spell Michalowicz.com. So you can go to Mike Motorbike. Plus, there's a little treat if you go that way. That was a nickname from high school. That was the only G-rated nickname I had, by the way. Everything else was unrepeatable. But if you go to MikeMotorbike.com, every book I've written, you can get free chapters and stuff. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. you can get that content. I have my own podcast at mikemotorbike.com.
Awesome. Mike, thanks again for being here, man. Such a joy, such a pleasure.
Thanks, brother.
Really had a lot of fun. Guys, check out the work. And as I've done before on the show, and I'll do it again now, is if you enjoyed this conversation specifically relating to Mike, and you write a review on the show and you screenshot that and you send it to our team, info@frontrodads.com. The first 5 people living within the US or Canada that do that, I'll mail you a copy of whatever book you want from Mike. So tell me what book you want. Send us a screenshot of your review, say something nice about Mike, and we will buy you a copy and mail it to you, our gift to you, to say thanks for listening to the show and taking the time to write a review. Mike, I look forward to the next time, man. And hopefully when you're in Austin, you can come down, we get some time in person.
Oh, I'd love it.